All right, so now that we're logged in, we have our user info and our state. I want to just add our name up here as well as a drop down with a link to the profile, which we don't have yet, but we will later on, and also a link to logout. And we might as well handle the logout as well. So let's go back in, let's close up login screen. We can actually close all this up. And let's go into our components and our header.js. So this is where our navbar is. Now we're going to have to bring our user login state into this component. So remember, whenever we want to bring in anything from Redux state, we need to bring in our use dispatch and use selector. So let's say import use dispatch, or I should say if you want to bring something in from the state, then it's use dispatch. If you want to call an action, then it's I'm sorry, it's the opposite. If you want to call an action, it's use dispatch. If you want to bring something in, then it's use selector. But in this case, we want to do both because we want the login action and we want the user login state. So that's going to be from React-Redux. And then I think that's good. So now down here, so we have our login, so we have our cart link here, we have our login. So we're going to go, let's see, let's go right under the cart link container, and let's open up some curly braces, and we want to check for user info. Actually, let's bring that in first. So up here, let's define user login, and we want to use selector, and that takes in state, arrow function, state, and we want the user login part of our state, and then what we want to get from that is user info, and that comes from user login. All right, so now we should have that. So let's go back down here and let's say if user info, then that's where we're going to have like our name and our drop down and stuff like that. And then let's put an else after those parentheses. Then we just want to show this login. So I'm going to grab this and cut that out and put that in the else. So that's if there's no user info. If there is user info, then we're going to use a nav drop down. We can auto import that. And for the title, let's set the title to the user info, which is that's the user object, but we want to get the name from it. And let's give this an ID of username. So that's our drop down. Now inside the drop down, we're going to have a link container, and this is going to be the profile. So let's have this go to /profile, and in here we want to have a nav drop down item. So nav drop down dot item, and that's just going to say profile. And then we want the logout. So underneath that link container, we're going to have a nav drop down dot item. We don't want a link container because we're just going to have an on click event handler on this item itself. So on click, and that's going to be set to a logout handler. And in here we'll just say logout. All right, so let's save that. User info is not defined. That should be an uppercase I. And yes, logout handler is not defined, so we'll just create that real quick. Oops. And for now, we'll just console log, logout. Use dispatch is defined but never used. That's okay. Actually, we'll just define it right here. So const dispatch equals use dispatch. It's never used. That's okay. We'll do that in a second. I just want to check this out. So let's go back, and now notice that the sign in is now our name. And if I click on here, we have a profile link, we have a logout link. which neither one of them do anything yet, but at least we can see the name here. So let's handle the logout. Now we are going to need a logout action. So let's keep this open and let's go into actions, and we want to go into user actions. And in here we're going to want to have a logout action, which is actually going to be pretty simple. So we'll just do this real quick. So let's say export const logout. And for our logout here, we're just going to pass in, it's not going to take any parameters, but this will take a dispatch. And all we want to do here is we want to do two things. We want to remove it from local storage. So let's say local storage dot remove item user info, and then we want to dispatch the user logout constant, or user logout action with the user logout constant, which we'll go ahead and auto import. So that's it. That's our logout. Now we want to dispatch this from here. So let's go ahead and change this to dispatch, and we want to dispatch logout, which we have to bring in from the actions file. So import logout from actions user actions. So let's go try this out. So if I go over here and I call logout, we get user logout here, and in the state diff you can see that the user info is now gone. It's out of the state. It should also be out of local storage. So now we still have cart items in there, which is fine, but our user is not there anymore. All right, cool. So if we log back in, let's actually log in as someone else. So we'll say admin@example.com. And when I log in, we see admin user, just because that's what I gave this user as a name. But yeah, so we can log in now as different users, and it's going to tell us which user we're logged in as right here. So that should do it for this video. In the next video, we want to start to work on register, so that we can, register a new user. If I log out here and I go to sign in and I go to register, we want to have a form here to register the user.